Today, we're going to talk about some things that I've learned from living full-time in this Airstream for the last 6 weeks so far. Alright, so I've come up with a short list over our 6 weeks approximately of living here. Now, I do want to say that while we are living in the Airstream full time, we've not been traveling in the Airstream yet. So, my experiences are limited, and I have a feeling that I'm going to learn a lot more. I almost want to make this video because I want to look back on it from a year and look at some of the things I learned versus some of the things I'm going to learn a year from now. Let's go over some of them for anybody who's thinking about this lifestyle. If you're finding this video right now and you're thinking about this lifestyle, well, you can watch me and the pups and Rally go through it and see if it's something that interests you. If you're finding this in the future, then great. You can watch all the other videos and see the train wreck that will undoubtedly ensue, but hopefully work out in the end. Number 5, cold weather sucks. Airstreams are not designed for cold weather. They don't make that expectation for you. Now, there are plenty of ways to make Airstreams livable in cold weather. Obviously, we're doing it. There are ways to go even further. The biggest thing is heating the underneath, and there's things you can do that I'm not going to get into because I don't even fully understand them. But there are ways you can do it fairly easily. But I don't plan to spend a lot of our time in single-digit weather. I didn't expect to spend this much time. So we've kind of just been dealing with it. And the couple biggest things that I've taken away from this cold weather experience are, first, propane is annoying. So it's not that expensive. I think a lot of people think it's really expensive. It's really not. It cost me, I think, around $25 to fill up a tank. And each tank will last me at least 4 to 5 days, and that's when the temperatures are single digits and teens and such, so, and overcast. Days like today where it's, 30, 40 degrees outside and sunny, I don't even need the heat. It's warm, it'll stay warm enough in here. In fact, I have a window open. What is most annoying though about the propane is going to have to refill it. Now, if the propane refilling station was right down the street, wouldn't be a big deal. But it's about a 15 or so minute drive into a part of town that I rarely have an excuse to go to other than to just get propane. So it's a little bit annoying that I have to make a special trip to do it. I've mitigated this by buying a third tank, which I most likely would have done anyways for the generator. That way I can go a couple weeks without having to run over there. That's when it was at its worst, when we were constantly we had several weeks in a row of single digit temperatures. I was having to go over there once every 7 to 10 days. The 2 tanks refilled while the third one was still powering everything back at the Airstream. The other annoyance with the extreme cold is the water. I can't stay hooked up to water when it's that cold. As I learned very early on, it will freeze.
All right, another lesson learned. It's gonna drop below freezing overnight. Disconnect the hose.
I have to be conservative as I would if we were off-grid living. The good thing is it's helped me learn how to conserve water, and it's helped me prepare for that. So it's not been all bad, and all I have to do is go out and hook up the hose and run it. Although it did get so cold for so long that even the outside of their house spigot froze. Couldn't take a shower that day. I ended up having to go in the house, take a shower that day because I happened to be out of water as well. So there's been some annoyances there, and because the pups get so warm, I don't like to keep it super warm in here, which means that the shower, which is at the opposite end of where most of the heat generates from, actually froze one day. So even though I had water, it was frozen in the shower, so I couldn't take a shower, so I had to go in the house that day and take a shower. There's been some annoyances like that, but it's nothing you couldn't overcome. As we're talking about water, it leads us right into number 4, which is water conservation. As I mentioned a moment ago, I've gotten to practice my conservation because I haven't been able to stay hooked up most of the time. I've also learned that the meters that tell me how much water I have left, 25%, may mean 0. As in today, when it said I had 25% left, I turned the faucet on and nothing. Thankfully, it's a warm day, so I just went ahead and filled up the tank and hooked up the hose, so we're good. But learning things like that, that's a very valuable lesson to have learned, that if it wasn't so cold to where I could stay hooked up all the time, I may not have learned that until I was out in the real world doing this. You know, water is by far the most valuable asset when you're going to be doing the dry camping, which is what I hope to do most of the time. A couple of things that I've come up with is, for example, if I make tea, I boil water. Once I make the tea, there's almost always water left over in the pan. Well, I let that cool down and then I just put it back into the container. Now, you may be wondering, well, why do you have a container if you have running water? Having these jugs has helped me see how much water me and specifically the pups are going through to kind of help me practice. So that's the biggest reason that I have the jugs. Just helps me visualize how much water we're going through so I can kind of plan for it. Many of you know, if you've been following along a long time, but when we go on our hikes and we go to the park and stuff, I always wipe their paws, give them a wipe down when we come back. I like to have fresh soapy water for them, but obviously water's a huge concern right now. So the way that I've conserved that is when you first turn on the shower, because the shower's at the opposite end of the water heater, it does take a few seconds for the hot water to come through. I don't want to waste that water, so what I do is I get their pup bucket out, I turn on the shower, I let the bucket fill up and until it starts to get warm, and then I am good to go in my shower and I can set that bucket aside for later. In the event that that bucket gets too cold for them, well, I can always throw in some sink water because the sink comes out hot within like a few seconds. The sink will come out hot, so if I need to throw in a little bit of hot water in there to warm it up later, I can. But that way I'm not wasting any water whatsoever. And that was really bothering me because I was like, what am I gonna do? I knew I wanted to figure out something to do with that water when I was turning on the shower, but I couldn't figure out what I could really use it for. I didn't necessarily want to like capture it and put it back into the tank. That seemed a bit excessive. You know, it's one thing to throw it back in the jug that's already here on the sink. I wouldn't do that with the shower water, but you know, like for my tea. So that's what I'm doing with it. So now it's not being wasted. Water conservation is one thing, but then we also have number 3, which is space conservation. This space, including this handy shelf that apparently people need to sit on to be able to shower. I don't know. Yeah, I know, we got Frisbee, I know. Again, this may seem obvious, but we are limited on space. We have about 125 or 150 square feet. 22 times. One of the things that shockingly took me a while to dawn on me, and by shockingly I mean within the last few days, is I've mentioned that I didn't originally want this floor plan because I feel like the bathroom is a lot of wasted space. I still think it is. Here we have the bathroom. The main reason I didn't like this floor plan was how big the bathroom is. You'll notice I have a full shower, and to me it just seems like a lot of wasted space. And that's all I have to say about that. However, it dawned on me that, well, I only use the shower once a day, if that, and for not very long. So I could take advantage of some larger things. So this space is going to be where pup food, cat food, and stuff that I use frequently that kind of takes up a lot of space. I don't want to have it out and about. And while, yes, it does mean that when I want to go take my shower, I have to move everything, that's only, you know, once a day, if that. Originally, I had planned to get some smaller food containers for them. I was going to have a smaller one that I could kind of like sit down here, wedge it in the corner or whatever, and then have the larger one in the truck. And then when the smaller one gets empty, I go get the one out of the truck and refill it. But now it's like, it dawns on me, well, I can just use their large one, fill it up, and sit it in the shower. I can do that with a couple other things. My desk chair, for example, I stick in there now if I'm not working at my desk because it gives me and the pups more room to walk around. And then when it comes down to taking a shower, well, I mean, I'm not going to put small things in there that it takes me 15 minutes to get things out of the way to take a shower. That's annoying. But large things like that, yeah, absolutely. And then when I get out of the shower, I just wipe it down, make sure there's no standing water or anything. Put their food back, put Riley's food back, put my desk chair back in there if I'm not working that day. And we end up with a ton more floor space. Really? And the number 2 thing is power consumption. Now, I've talked about the EcoFlow in the past. Again, I am going to do a full video on the EcoFlow and how it works. But power conservation is a little bit different than water and space conservation. While it is limited to what you have, to a degree. We'll talk about that. Unlike the other things where I kept trying to figure out ways to use less of, with power consumption, it more came about how can I get more of the power? And that's what I've done here. From the beginning of this whole endeavor, I've mentioned that I want to get solar installed. An entire like solar installation was going to be at least $10,000 to $15,000. That's a lot of money, but I was willing to do it if that's what it takes. The other thing though is that one of the main places I was looking to have do it couldn't install it for a few months. I'm not going to wait a few months to travel. I'm going to have to come up with something in the interim. Well, most people use generators. That's fine. I was going to buy a generator anyways as an emergency backup in case something happened to the solar. Always a good idea to have a backup. Plus, the solar was not going to be powerful enough to run the air conditioner. And even if it could only run it for a short period. In the event that we got stuck somewhere where it was really hot and I needed the air, well then I'm gonna run the generator so that way I can run the air conditioner for the pups. In researching this alternative methods though, I came across the EcoFlow. Now you've probably seen things like this. This is essentially a giant battery. So if you've ever had a portable battery pack for your cell phone that you plug up to or something, that's basically what this is. It's just a really big version of it. Not only that, but it can generate a huge amount of power. So there's capacity, you know, how long they can power something for, but then there's also peak power, like how much power they can generate at one time. Let's say your small little cell phone battery pack, even if it could theoretically power a microwave, it couldn't actually generate enough power. Same with I have a smaller one down here. It could actually power, it has enough capacity to power my microwave for several minutes, I would assume, probably 10, 15 minutes even. But it could never generate the 11, 12, 1300 watts that the microwave demands. This can. It can run everything. It can even run the AC. Again, it's limited to its capacity, so it couldn't run it for a super long time, but it could actually run it. That's how much it can generate. I can run the microwave. I can do anything I want. I may be limited on how long I can do it, but I can do anything I want. Now, I knew about devices like this, but I was hesitant to buy one because once the battery's drained, it's, you know, it's an all-day event to charge them. So I'd have to run the generator all day long to recharge it. Well, why don't I just run the generator then? Because that's essentially what I'm doing anyways. I set out to buy a small version, and in the process, I discovered the brand EcoFlow, and what's amazing about this is it can be 80% recharged from my generator in about an hour. So I can run this all day, and then I only have to run the generator for about an hour each day. It's not that hot, you're okay. Get some cross-flow, airflow. Well, you know, if you weren't working on your tan back there. So again, I'll do an entire video on this, but essentially this will run the Airstream, and then as it starts to get lower or throughout the day, I can turn on the propane generator, which I already have propane. It could run off gasoline, but I already have propane with me because the Airstream has propane tanks. Flip on the generator, maybe let it run for 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time. This will gain a huge amount of boost of power at that point, and then, you know, I do that throughout the day because I can actually turn on the propane generator via a remote control. So I could just be sitting here and do it. I did want to interrupt this video real quick to let you guys know that it is being sponsored by me and Enzo. So if you would like a beanie hat or a keychain, you can purchase this down below, especially before we take out of here. So if you want to support us with a merch purchase, I would greatly appreciate it. We have the beanies, we have keychains, and we have stickers. Now, if you want some of the other things like the hoodies or the shirts that sometimes you see me wear, those actually come through Teespring, although I think they call themselves Spring now or something. That's a separate link down below. But the beanies and the keychains and the stickers, that's through my own Shopify store. Depending on which one you want, you may have to go to, it's going to vary on the link. Now, back to the video. Now for the most important thing that I've learned thus far, living in this Airstream, 150 square feet for the last 6 weeks. Seriously, trying to finish the video here. I was trying to think of how to say this without it sounding, I don't want it to sound like a bragging or I'm better than you because I've come to this realization. It's not like that. I've realized that as it sits right now, I want for virtually nothing. At least nothing physical. Going back as far as I can remember, I've always had a passion for cars, for example. Something that I've always wanted is a massive garage with a bunch of different cars and vehicles. And now I see cars go by. For example, this cool Audi R8 that constantly goes by. I think he just bought it or something. And it's cool, but I don't find myself wanting it. I see things And it's easy to just not buy things. For example, oh, speaking of cars, I mean, sure, if somebody wants to give me a McLaren, I mean, I will take it and I'll keep it at my parents or something. It's more than just that. I sometimes wonder what the next chapter of my life may look like. Would I ever buy a house again? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But one thing that I do know is the idea of having to furnish a house makes me very anxious. Oh, it's not something I would want to do. It's like, well, I don't necessarily know that I would want a closet house. Like, if I'm going to go back into a house, I feel like I'd want something larger for the pups to run around in. But I don't want to fill it with furniture. You know, it's like, no, I don't need all that stuff again. I don't want to go through all that again. So it's made a very common factor in my life. I think back to vacations. No matter how amazing a vacation may be, you get home and there's still that sense of, okay, I'm home now. You have your bed, you have your stuff. Well, I have my bed and my stuff with me all the time. I don't find myself missing anything that I don't have in this Airstream. There were so many boxes that I thought of stuff that I might need or want that I, instead of putting in storage, I put in my parents' garage. And after being here for 6 weeks, it's like, I thought for sure I would need this, yet I have not come and gotten it one time in 6 weeks, so clearly I don't need it. I mean, it's been the biggest test. That's one of the things they should say you should do when you're trying to get rid of stuff is put everything in a box, and then over the course of a week or a month or whatever, if you don't go get that item out of the box to use it, well, then you don't need it. I essentially did that with my whole life. I put everything in boxes, and what I found is I can get by with a lot less than even what I thought. So that's been the biggest thing that I've learned and that I've been thrilled about experiencing is just how little stuff I need. You know, I need food, I need shelter, I need the pups, I need Rally, I need some camera gear and a computer. It's nice to have a Netflix subscription, clothes, and that's about it. What are we looking at now? You just love your perch? You can just keep an eye on the world. Well, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you guys learned a lot. Like I said, if you are thinking about this lifestyle, definitely subscribe to follow along, or if you just wanna see what's going on with our life. I appreciate everybody who likes, who subscribes, who watches the videos, who comments. I especially appreciate all the Patreons that support us each and every month. The Patreons have always been a special place for me, but you have no idea now, more than ever, every little bit helps, and it may not seem much to you. Like, oh, what could $3 a month really do to impact somebody's life? Well, I mean, you get enough people doing it and it starts to make a difference. So it really does help me so much. And I appreciate you all so much. And we'll see you on the next one. Later on.